The Reds have found their new manager in Terry Francona. Joe and I are going to break down what this means for the future of that Reds teams and if they have a chance to make it all the way next year under the tutelage of one of the greatest managers in baseball history. We'll then talk about the wild card series for all the different teams that just finished up today on the day that we're recording this, with the Mets moving on to the National League Division Series. I'll wrap it all up by breaking down those National League Division Series. The starting pitching for some of these teams has already been announced, so we'll talk about that. Teams we like moving forward. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 2 of the MLB Mojo Podcast, the Derek Jeter episode, Joe, of the MLB Mojo Podcast. How we feeling after a pretty exciting Game 3 between the Mets and the Brewers?
I'm a little bummed. I had what I thought would be a banger. Maybe not like crazy banger tweet for the Mariner Mojo Twitter account, but it was going to be, I ended up tweeting it anyways, saying, damn the Grimace Mets, basically. Old man shaking fist at clouds, but about how the Seattle Pilots went on to become the Milwaukee Brewers, so Seattle's going to advance to the division series. But when the
Unlike
Brewers...
the Astros.
Yeah. Suckers. Colton, this is MLB Mojo. We can't do that here.
Right. Sorry.
Unlike, when the Brewers needed Devin Williams most, classic Avatar The Last Airbender joke, he vanished. A great swing. A great hit by Pete Alonso, truthfully. Bro got every ounce of that baseball when he needed to. And there was a lot of talk on the timeline about Pete's not going to come up big. Get him off the team. We don't need to bring him back next year. And then, as it goes, old takes exposed. The impressions are just going crazy up on those tweets an hour after the game has ended, kind of a vibe. So good win from the Mets, but we can't talk fully about it yet because we need to address Terry Francona. Okay, takes a year off from baseball, leaves the Guardians in 2023. He's back, baby. This is what he does. He coaches for about 10 years, needs to go hibernate for a year. 10 pretty solid years, consistently as well. Takes a year off, and then he comes back. His first year with the Red Sox in 2004, won a World Series. They didn't do that in Cleveland in 2013, but I think is Cleveland's winningest manager as far as win percentage. I could be wrong, but just through 2013, 92 wins, 85 wins, 81, 94, 102, 91, 93, did end up going to the World Series, obviously lost to the Cubs in 2016, but this is a guy you said one of the best managers in baseball. Terry Francona is a guy that, yeah, this is a good get for the Cincinnati Reds. Tough for David Bell, but again, it's a coach that can, one, take a young roster like he did in 2022 with the Guardians, the youngest team in baseball, it was announced all throughout 2022. Took them to a AL Central title. Obviously lost in the division series that year, unfortunately, but still is able to bring the most out of a young nucleus. I think this would be great for the Reds long term. Maybe it's not a decade. Maybe now he's only going 5-year intervals or something. But this is a guy who's got so much experience under his belt that if you're a Cincinnati Reds fan, you should be excited that Terry Francona is your manager for 2025.
Yeah, he's a guy who in his 10 years with the Cleveland Guardians, he took them to the playoffs 6 times. With the Guardians, he had a career record of 921 and 757, good for about a 549, 54% record with the Cleveland Guardians, and with the Red Sox he had a 574. So this is a guy, he's throughout the entirety of his career runs a 538 win percentage. He knows how to win baseball games, he knows how to manage baseball games. It has been exactly a year to the day since he announced his retirement that he did take this job with the Cincinnati Reds. Just moving across Ohio. He's staying in Ohio. Why not?
Yeah.
Staying in Goodyear. Goodyear down in Arizona. Same spring training facility as the Guardians. So him and Stephen Vogt can, chat it up down there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think this is a good get for the Cincinnati Reds. I think that they're a team that maybe lacked direction under David Bell. Not to say that David Bell was a bad manager. I'm sure he will find another job somewhere. Maybe not as a manager. We talked before this, maybe as a bench coach or something. But Terry Francona is just that guy. He's very well respected throughout all of baseball. It's also nice to know that he's healthy, because there have been he's had plenty of health issues in the past that have had him stepping away from teams. So it's nice to know that he feels good enough to be able to come back and be a manager. That's a team with a lot of young talent. You think about Ellie De La Cruz, Spencer Steer, etc. That's a team that I think is built to win. And of course, with Noelvi Marte coming back next year, hopefully he is 100% after his suspension. So it'll be interesting to see what this means for the NL Central moving forward. Obviously, a lot of shakeup in that division over the past like year or two. And we just watched, Joe, one of the NL Central the NL Central division winner get knocked out of the playoffs by the New York Mets. Tell me a little bit about that wild card series.
It's all about the Mets, baby. Let the Mets go Mets. It was a back and forth escapade, I think, all 3 games. The first game, Brewers get out to a lead, and then what should have been their strength, their bullpen, completely blows it, just bottles it, and let the Mets back in. They win game 1, the Mets do, and they are able to hold it down. I think, what was the final score there? Like 8-4 or something stupid.
Yep.
And then game 2, you're like, okay, every other series so far has been a 2-game sweep, as the Mets were playing the third as far as like the time zone game, how the schedule kind of played out, because it was, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You know I got
you. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I got you.
Yeah.
I do.
So like up until that point, we're like, okay, are we going to see any 3-game wild card series here? And the Brewers get a big pinch hit from Garrett Mitchell, a bomb, just erupts. The crowd erupts in Milwaukee. You're thinking maybe that's the passing of the momentum. Like Jackson Chourio had a great game. Like it felt like the series was then in the Brewers' hands for whatever reason. Obviously, I mean, they're at home. It's nice having the second game win, preventing that 2-game sweep going into the final third game. And this one felt like it was the Brewers all along. It like two-run lead. It was a Jake Bauers bomb followed immediately by a Sal Frelick home run as well on back-to-back pitches. The Mets, their bullpen just wasn't as sharp as it needed to be, but that can be the same exact sentiment for the Brewers because Evan Williams, just did not have it at least as good as you needed him to be. I said it, it's a great swing by Pete Alonso to be able to hit the airbender change out to right field. That was a huge home run, a 3-2 go-ahead home run in the top of the 9th, basically down to their last wits there. And then they get another one. Jesse Winker, just going bananas, dude. Hits by a pitch, steals a base, scores from second on a Starling Marte hit, slams his helmet down. I saw, I don't remember who posted it, but they captioned it with the Pete Weber quote, like, "Who do you think you are? I am." And that's very fitting for the type of energy that Jesse Winker is bringing in that like moment where he slides in and he slams his helmet down. Good for the Mets. They get a division rival in the Phillies in the next round. But Colton, we do need to talk about some of the other series that weren't maybe as exciting because they were all sweeps. Let's start. We'll finish off the NL wildcard. Padres Braves. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention there. Thanks for letting me talk about the Mets. I appreciate that. Is that the Mets and Phillies have never played each other in the playoffs.
What are you, John Morosi?
You kidding me?
You're just gonna say matchups have never happened before in the playoffs?
That's right. Had never happened before, and it's gonna happen now. You talk about the other National League wildcard game here. Wildcard series between the Padres and the Braves. This is the only series where the home team is the one that is moving on here. Game 1, pretty boring. I'm not gonna lie. Padres win 4-0 over the Braves. Fernando Tatis had a big home run in that one. Really good energy in that game there. I don't really have a whole lot to say about that game.
It was Michael King masterclass.
Yeah,
that was
true.
Like pretty.
What
much
did he strike out? Like 12 or something?
Yeah, that was like pretty much the like. You can tell the story of that game and Tatis home run, Michael King masterclass, end.
That's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Game 2, a little bit more exciting here. The Padres are able to pull this one out 5-4 over the Atlanta Braves. I know Jorge Soler had a big home run in this game. They actually made it pretty close.
Yeah.
I believe the Braves were ahead the Padres were ahead the whole time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Michael Harris hit like a 2-run home run in the 8th, I think. Brought it real close, but the Padres do hold on. I think it was off of Jason Adam, I believe. Yep. But yeah, I mean, Robert Suarez, I believe, came in, got it done after some questionable outings, kind of finishing out the regular season. So that's huge for his confidence. If you can build up his confidence going into the next series when you've already got a like pretty established back end of the pen with, I mean, sure, Adam did give up the home run, but like still, he's no slouch. Tanner Scott's no slouch. Like they've got a lot of good. I think they've got a lot of good momentum and energy heading into their divisional matchup.
Yeah, against the Dodgers, which is going to be a hell of a lot of fun. Obviously, two teams that have been fighting for that division the entirety of the year, especially right up at the end of the season. You mentioned, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but the Padres actually took the season series from the Dodgers. So yeah, I think the Padres have the pitching advantage, in my opinion, in that series. And honestly, like you and I have talked about it, they're built to win in October. Like that team showed why they're so deep in this playoff series versus the Braves. But now let's move on to my favorite series, Joe. And that is the Tigers and the Astros. I'm going to let you run here with game 2. But game 1, we talk about Tarek Skubal. I mean, Framber Valdez and Tarek Skubal. The Tigers were able to get to Framber Valdez relatively quickly. But Tarek Skubal goes out there and shoved, as he does, as is almost to be expected from Tarek Skubal in the playoffs. Honestly, just an all-around win for them, 3-1 over the Houston Astros in game 1 in Minute Maid Park. But Joe, your guy won it for him in game 2. Tell me about it.
The guy that I wanted the Mariners to acquire last offseason, maybe at the deadline, Andy Ibanez. I'm glad he's not a Seattle Mariner because he doesn't get this hit off of Josh Hader to give the Tigers the lead. A bases clearing double, advances to third, I believe, on a play at the plate. Andy Ibanez was a pinch hit opportunity. They knew what they were doing. AJ Hinch knows what he's doing. It's a guy that crushes lefties. Sure. Is he facing arguably the toughest lefty to face in a reliever spot? Yeah, Josh Hader. But you know who got it done? Andy freaking Ibanez, dude. Parker Meadows got the scoring started in this one. It was back and forth, just quick innings. Hunter Brown pitched very well in this game for the Houston Astros. It was a bullpen day for the Tigers, like weird Tyler Holt.
I don't know how they do it, bro.
Bo Brisky came in and gave them some big innings. Like it's incredible watching what that bullpen can do, but Parker Meadows opened up the scoring with a home run off of the foul pole, I believe, in like the 5th or the 6th inning. And then some shenanigans happened that for the Astros that it felt like nothing ever bad happens to this franchise, kind of a situation, like a line drive hit by John Singleton that Torkelson dives at, makes the throw, but he one-hops at the Rogers, doesn't field it cleanly. It's just like, is like
Jackson Jobe on the mound as well in that situation, which is
true.
AJ Hinch went to the guy who had pitched in 4 major league games in his career. Obviously, if he gets out of it and like with no earned runs and pitches through it, AJ Hinch looks like a genius.
Yeah, masterclass.
but Jobe, I mean, you could tell that he was a bit antsy up there. Only went a third of an inning, gave up 2 hits and 2 earned runs in that inning. The second earned run was on a fly ball to right field that Matt Vierling did not get rid of fast enough. And then it was a sacrifice fly.
Yeah, by Altuve. I was surprised that like it wasn't that deep. Like that should be an out like 9 times.
I think they said it was
10.
like 187 feet.
Crazy. I mean, Pena's got the burners when he needs to. Like he is a very fast player, but still, that's where the Astros take the lead. A pass ball by Ryan Presley and Yainer Diaz. That clip's going viral, like a little spiked curveball. Diaz doesn't get down to block it. That's the tying run, and then obviously Ibanez comes in and clears the bases there, leading the Tigers to a 2-0 series win there. A 5-2 victory in that final game, keeping the Astros out of the championship series for the first time since 2016. We're totally not excited about it. We only are excited because the Tigers, the Cinderella run, get to continue, right? We're very unbiased, not... Anyways, the other wild card series, Colton, your Royals, man. Totally unbiased here. Your Royals allowed how many runs over 18 innings?
Was it one? It was one whole run.
A singular run, a home run by Cedric Mullins. A 2-0 series win over the Orioles in this one. Orioles, I mean, they're on fraud watch in the playoffs. They're reaching Twins territory. They're kind of reaching, I mean, Brewers in that same conversation too, just can't get it done in the postseason, but
it's 2018 for the Brewers.
Yeah, dude, it's rough, but good for the Royals. Exciting for them to be able to continue their playoff dream. I mean, when they make the playoffs, they make the World Series. 2014 and 2015. People are saying, Colton, anything you want to touch on from those 2 games specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's the pitching for the Royals. You and I talked about it a little bit prior, I think in the last podcast we did actually. But Cole Reagans went 6 innings, 4 hits of 8 strikeouts, did have to come out with a bit of a calf cramp or strain or whatever. I would assume he'll be good to go coming up here against the Yankees, maybe in game 2, it sounds like. But for this team, it has been and always was for this Royals this Royals team, the pitching for them all year long. You talked a little bit about it in game 2. The Royals were able to put together a couple of runs. They scored one in the first and one in the 6th inning. No home runs from the Royals in the wild card round, which I think is about on par for them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that sounds about right. Of course, the one run that was scored, Bobby Witt Jr. had both game-winning RBIs.
Yep.
Because it's Bobby Witt Jr. Of course he did.
That's just what he does.
Otherwise, it was Seth Lugo in game 2, gave up 1 run in 4 1/3, and then the bullpen locked it down for him. So yeah, Joe, I mean, it was the wild card series. I think there's been 20 of these 3-game series is played, and only 4 of them have gone to game 3. And game 3 was a doozy this year between the Brewers and the Mets. But now, moving on to the division series, let's stick here with the Royals, Joe. Tell me about the pitching matchup we're going to see in game 1, because it's going to be Michael Wacha versus Garrett Cole.
Well, I don't really need to tell you about it because I'm just kidding. Wacha was a free agent signing for the Royals, another veteran guy that they brought in on the season, a 13-8 record with a 3.35 ERA, struck out 145 batters, not on the same level as Cole Ragans or Seth Lugo on the year, but this is a guy that's got a ton, literally a metric ton of experience, which I think will pay dividends for this Royals team heading into what's going to be a pretty raucous environment. New York, Yankee Stadium. They missed the postseason last year. They know that this is their window. They don't know if Soto's going to resign, honestly. This is their year. This is their year to win, and they don't have to face like the big bad Astros or think back to like the pre-2020s, like the Red Sox were also a thorn in the Yankees side trying to make it through into the World Series. This is looking, not to get too far ahead of myself, this is probably their best chance, I'd say, with their core, with how it's built. Because again, you don't know if Soto's going to come back. You don't know how Garrett Cole's going to finish out the rest of his career. Because on the year, I mean, it was a shortened season for him because of his injury, but an 8-5 record with a 3.41 ERA. It's not quite AL Cy Young Garrett Cole, but I mean, this dude's got pedigree as well. We're talking about tons of experience. Garrett Cole, he's got it, right? It's just how much can you really rely on the Yankees offense when it's been just largely Judge and Soto all year. Sure, they tried to make some deadline acquisitions. They brought in Jazz Chisholm. That's great. He's been, I'd say, like a spark plug for them in situations. Austin Wells has had a very big year for them behind the dish as well. Kind of getting out from underneath them like the Jose Trevino, like the defense first catcher kind of a situation where he's not really providing a lot for you offensively. Wells has been a guy that he's probably going to win AL Rookie of the Year or finish second behind Colton Cowser, realistically. So this is a fun game 1 matchup. I mean, it's 2 righties that are aging veterans, essentially. I think Cole definitely has the upper hand here, but I don't want it to feel like Wacha isn't going to get his flowers because I think he had a really great year. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Yankees get out to a quick lead here with Judge and Soto just either walking and then hitting a home run or hitting back-to-back home. Like the environment that the Royals are walking into, sure, it wasn't like super friendly in Camden, but it's going to be a completely different situation when they walk into Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, when it comes to the 2 places you really don't want to play, in my opinion, in October, it's Yankee Stadium, even though this one is the new one and they've only played a handful of games there, you know what I mean, in October. Still, it's the New York Yankees, it's their fans, and then Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Those are the Philadelphia specifically, which we'll talk about.
Red October's crazy.
I think that for the Royals, they have their work cut out for them. They're definitely the underdogs here. They don't have any they don't have the Aaron Judge big bat. They don't have the Juan Soto bat. They don't have. I mean, Cole Ragans, I would say, is a better pitcher than Garrett Cole, but the pedigree's not there. Mm-hmm. Like people, he's not a household name like Garrett Cole. So I look for. It'll be interesting to see how the Royals look when the lights are the brightest for them. They looked fine in the wild card round, but yeah, like you said, it's going to be a whole different environment in this 5-game series. With the New York Yankees, obviously the first 2 will be played in Yankee Stadium. The next 2, if necessary, will be played in Kauffman, and then the last one will go back to Yankee Stadium, how the 5-game series work. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see what this series is going to look like, because, Joe, we talked about Game 2 a little bit. I don't want to get too far into it, but yeah. Game 2, it is Cole Ragans that is lined up right now.
Yep.
And then against Carlos Rodon.
Yeah, so 2 lefties, power lefties. Rodon had a lot better year than I remember for whatever reason. Maybe it's because I wasn't paying as much attention to the Yankees later in the season because I think I dropped him from my fantasy team. So I stopped paying attention to how Carlos Rodon was doing. But a 16-9 record, sure, it's a team stat, but still a 3.96 ERA, almost 200 strikeouts at 195, like a very solid year for Carlos Rodon. I think kind of what the Yankees signed him to be was a second man behind Garrett Cole. But he is up against Cole Reagans, who is the de facto ace of the Royals. And that's a clear pitching advantage for Kansas City there. I will say the advantage for the Royals that you really have to take a look at, though, is their bullpen. Like, the Yankees' pen is far and leagues away behind, I think, where the Royals are at. Ursig, lights out at the back end. Bubic, a guy that I did not name previously in conversations, mainly with my manager at work, okay? We're talking about it all. He's like, you undersold the Royals bullpen. My bad. I forgot about lefty Chris Bubic, okay?
In my head, Bubic is still a starting pitcher. So
sure, right? You're like, who is this man? And then obviously Angel Serpa, Brady Singer's in the pen, Lorenzen's in the pen. I don't know if Mr. Will Smith will be making any appearances. I doubt it. Lower back spasm since August 25th, but he's the soul of Will Smith. The spirit of Will Smith is riding high with the Royals in October. I will say the season series does go to the Yankees here 2-5. Or that was an awful way to say that, because I was thinking about how the Royals did. The Yankees won the season series 5-2.
There you go.
I said it backwards because I'm looking at the Royals page, but
yeah,
it's again, like you said, the Royals have their work cut out for them, but I think it'll be fun regardless. Even if it is a 3-game sweep on either side, I think it'll be a fun series either way.
3 teams from the American League Central made the playoffs, which is hilarious because we have dogged on the Central for years about how it's the worst division in baseball. Going on to the other American League Division Series, the Tigers against the Guardians. On MLB.com, it lists Tanner Bybee as the starter for the Guardians and TBD for the Tigers. I don't think Skubal would go in this one. He might.
I love TBD's work.
Yeah, right? Yeah, TBD's just been getting moved around a lot this year to different teams.
Honestly.
Skubal, I think, will probably pitch game 2 in this one. It's possible he starts game 1. It's also possible to go with, like, Keter Montero in this game or...
like a Reese Olson.
Yeah. What? Oslin?
Reese Olson. Did I say Oslin?
It sounded like you said Oslin. I might be wrong. They could also just go with another bullpen day because it's the freaking Tigers and AJ Hinch. I almost said Austin Hinch. AJ Hinch is working that weird voodoo magic. I don't know. Like, it could be any of these guys. I don't know where to start with the Tigers. They're so hard to talk about because I don't even think they know what they're going to do day in and day out, which is I kind of think what makes them also dangerous.
Yeah.
Every guy has to be ready. Every guy has to be just in the game because you never know when your bat's going to get called upon. Andy Abaniz the other day is a great example. So game 1, Joe, Tanner Bybee, I know that you love the guy. Tell me a little bit about that pitching matchup. I guess him against the Tigers.
Yeah, it's like if it's Skubal, like obviously Skubal gives you a clear advantage like every day of the week, twice on Sunday, but Bybee is no slouch, okay? Broke onto the scene in 2023 as another like Guardians pitching lab product of like, oh no, they lost Shane Bieber. What are they going to do? Here comes Tanner Bybee, okay? Back-to-back 3+ win seasons as far as F4 is concerned. Last year, he put up a 2.98 ERA. This year, a 3.47 ERA. He made 31 starts and pitched 173 and 2/3 innings. 9.69 strikeouts per 9, 2.28 walks per 9, so it's like not crazy good, but this is a guy that just knows how to pitch, which I think is kind of the tail of the tape for a lot of this Guardians pitching staff. Not necessarily the starters, but this bullpen has 4 guys, Colton, that have an ERA plus of over 200. Emmanuel Clase has an ERA plus of like 640 something. One of the best reliever seasons that I have ever laid witness to. All right. Hunter Gaddis is a starter last year. I think a starter in 2022 and then last year as well for part-time. Reliever, bro's just gas. Like, bro is just unhittable. Cade Smith, another guy with an ERA plus over 200, and then Tim Herron. He's the lefty for them, the lefty specialist. Those 4 relievers, like, if there's like a 4 horsemen of an apocalypse type bullpen, it's those 4 guys. Having that as your advantage is like a crazy good advantage. The issue is it's not on the same level, but the Tigers bullpen is almost just as deadly. Like, it's not as, I'd say, like top heavy, but it's deep. Right? They've obviously won a ton of games by just throwing out bullpen days, changing up looks, changing up like different at bats, giving themselves different advantages. Like, The Guardians can do that, but not for a full 9 innings. They can do it for, 2, 3 at a time. It's going to be electric, but like Tanner Bybee can go 5, and then they could turn to the next 4 innings for Heron, Smith, Gaddis, Clase in that order, and they probably win that game. It's just, how do the Tigers mitigate that, and how do they take advantage of maybe seeing a guy a second, maybe even third time through an order? Because similar to the Royals, the Tigers don't really have that big, pack a punch kind of player. Like, sure, Riley Green had a great year, but like he kind of wasn't looking super hot in that Astros series. Like Parker Meadows, he had a pretty big hit, plays great defensively, but like he's also not going to light you up from the batter's box. Like the Tigers don't really have that like big hitter. It's just they've done well situationally, and that's what they need to continue to do. Talking about like how they need to consistently be ready at all times. Like that is what they've excelled at least so far through like making the playoffs and then against Houston. It's just this Guardians roster is built, I think, to be like a stopper. Like they know how to operate. Stephen Vogt in his first year, I mean, he's looking pretty damn good at the helm there. And I look to Jose Ramirez as like a guy that almost had a 40-40 season to be the guy that really propels this Guardians offense. I mean, Josh Naylor had an amazing year. Stephen Kwan at the top of the lineup. Like looking at these two teams, it was almost a season. Like if there was a 14th game, maybe they would have split the season, like the season series. It does go 1-game favorites to the Guardians. They won the series 7-6, but I don't know, dude. This is going to be, I think, a bloodbath tooth and nail, like back and forth.
I think that it's not the sexy series. Like of all the division series, I think this is the one that's like, okay, people are like, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think it actually will be the most interesting because just like you said, both teams, they have their strengths. I would honestly lean to the Guardians being the team to beat, but you can never count out these Tigers.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing with them. And I look to what the Tigers did against Ryan Presley and Josh Hader. Like, the two best relievers in the bullpen for the Astros didn't matter. That's who they scored all their runs against. Like, obviously, Emmanuel Clase is on a plane by himself, but it's the best way, I think, for the Tigers to score runs in these games is to get the starting pitcher out early and make them have to force their hand to go to some of those other relievers that are not the high leverage guys and try to do your damage against them, because there's a good chance that once, you get to the 6th inning and if the Guardians have the lead, they can pretty much lock it down right then and there. I think honestly, maybe you don't feel this way, but pitching has really been the tail of the tape in the postseason so far, albeit only through the wild card series, but pitching has really dominated so far, which has been very interesting to me. And you have clubs that don't have the big bopper, like the Royals or like the Tigers. Got teams that, they're like pretty deep 1 through 9, but they don't have a guy in the middle of their lineup like Aaron Judge or Juan Soto. Moving on now to, I want to talk about the Mets and the Phillies, Joe. Again, series that has never been played in the playoffs. Zach Wheeler.
Sorry, you just reminded me of something.
Oh, okay. Zach Wheeler, game 1. We're assuming it'll be Luis Severino, right? Yeah. In game 1 for the Mets. It has not been announced at the time that we're recording this. But yeah, that'll be, I believe, the 3rd game on, or maybe that's the primetime game. I think it's the primetime game on Saturday. Phillies, and assuming it's Luis Severino. Pretty good pitching matchup. Wheeler had a great year, 2.57 ERA, one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. And Severino kind of had a nice comeback year after his down year last in 2023 with the New York Yankees. What can you tell me about that matchup?
I'm not necessarily worried if it's Severino again, because they could go McGill, because he was the guy that started the first game of that doubleheader on Monday against the Braves. But either him or Severino make the most sense to me. You're not going to go Manaea Quintana. They pitched David Peterson at the end of their final game against the Brewers, so it's going to be Severino more than likely. Got down early against the Brewers in game 1 and battled back and pitched continued to kind of eat innings away that I think allowed the Mets to really kind of, not to say run away with game 1 against the Brewers, but that could have spiraled completely out of control for Severino and the Mets had he not battled back there. So that, I think, instills a lot of confidence. The issue is, I would say, and don't quote me on this, I need to find the actual stat here to make sure I'm not going to lie to you. Okay, it's not that big of a difference. The Phillies have a 108 team WRC plus. The Brewers have a 104 team WRC plus. I was going to say that the Phillies have a more potent offense than the Brewers, but really it's not that big of a difference. But I think you look through the lineup. You got Schwarber leading off. You got Trey Turner batting 2. And you got Bryce Harper batting 3. Castellanos batting 4. Alec Boehm, who had a pretty solid year, batting 5. You've got A.O.K. Bryson Stott batting 6. Realmuto batting 7. Marsh batting 8. And then, I mean, I don't know if they go with Austin Hayes 9 because it'll be a righty on the mound. Like maybe they go with a lefty there instead. But, I mean, their option is like Cody Clemens, which doesn't really feel great.
I forgot he was on the
so
Phillies.
It's probably Austin Hayes. But, again, I think back to 2022. They made the World Series against the Astros and lost. Like this team in 2022 was lethal as far as like hitting in the big moments. I mean, they got to the championship series last year. I think this Phillies team, I mean, they're your pick. I think they're going to run away they're going to run away with this one versus the Mets. Like Wheeler, he's probably going to finish second in Cy Young behind Chris Sale, who we didn't really say anything about it, but he was out for the Braves in the wild card series, which probably paid dividends for the Padres. But if it's Wheeler versus Severino, like that pitching matchup is automatically in favor of the Phillies. And then you think about their bullpen. They've got Carlos Estevez at the back. They've got Jeff Hoffman. Like Matt Strom had a great year. Alvarado, inconsistent, but has shown like flashes of brilliance in the past. Like this Phillies team, I just think is deeper overall than the Mets. They're going to be rested, but I know a lot of people have gripes with the format and say, oh, well, the Mets are warm now. The Mets are warmed up. It's all about the Mets, baby. Let the Mets go Mets. Maybe they will kind of take it to the Phillies in game 1 since they've played a lot of baseball more recently than the Phillies have.
Yeah.
Will the Phillies be ready?
This Phillies lineup, man, I mean, you saw a lot of them in the All-Star game this year. Like, I think that they just gel so well together. I think that they'll be fine.
Yeah.
When you have Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, etc. on your team, like that team is stacked top to bottom. They're probably my favorite lineup in the postseason.
In Philadelphia, in Citizens Bank, Red October's here. Like every team coming into the divisional round out of the wild card round, I think it's honestly an uphill battle. Outside of the last series that we're going to talk about, every other team coming into that is the underdog, and the team that had the bye is the favorite for sure. But there's a difference between the final National League division series that I think kind of sets apart the rest of them and like separates that one. And I think a lot of eyes will be on this final division series, Padres Dodgers, even though they've played in the postseason before, unlike the Mets and the Phillies. Same thing with the Guardians and the Tigers, whatever. All right. We're not focusing on niche antique facts here. We're looking at a brawl, a battle for the National League West, a battle for California, if you will. Okay. San Diego and Los Angeles. This is going to be cinema. Absolute cinema. Every single time.
We gotta stop doing that.
No,
we've done it in like every podcast we've done.
We just throw our arms up. That's just what we do. That's our emote. I don't know. Okay.
I don't know.
People are saying, I'm so happy that it's Padres Dodgers because we know what's at stake. It's literally like stomping ground, trash talk, like backyard baseball type stuff of like, you suck, I'm better, you play ball like a girl type vibe. Like that's what it feels like for me when Padres Dodgers play in the postseason. Padres got the best of them last year. They got the best of them in the regular season this year as well. Like you said, they were chasing down the Dodgers in the division. This is Shohei's first time in the postseason. How will he perform on the biggest stage? Yamamoto is the game 1 starter. Opposite of him, Dylan Cease. Both, I'd say, presumptuous aces of both of these staffs. But Colton, are you ready for this?
I mean, this is definitely going to be the one. This one, by the way, is the primetime game. This is the one that I'm going to be most excited to watch because it's going to be so much fun to watch, you know, guys like Tatis and Machado go up against Mookie and Shohei. And like the pitching on both sides, like the star power is everywhere you look. There's star power on both of these teams. It's going to be so much fun to watch, you know, Fernando Tatis. The Padres have a lot of flair. The Padres have a lot of like, yeah. Like got my like
oh yeah,
Tatis pimping home runs. But then you look at the Dodgers. They have they buy their way to the playoffs? Yes, they did, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you have Shohei in his first postseason, like you said, Mookie Betts, of course, one of the best all-around players in baseball, just in anything he does. Freddie Freeman, again, I still haven't heard anything about him. I'm assuming he's fine. Otherwise, we probably would have heard something by now.
Yeah.
One of the best catchers in baseball, and Will Smith behind the plate as well. So, yeah, it's just going to be so much fun to watch both of these teams. Dylan Cease had a great year, 3.47 ERA, 224 strikeouts for him. Yamamoto did come off the injured list towards the end of the year. A 3 ERA for him on the year with 105 Ks, but his stuff is nasty when he's on. I am a little bummed, Joe, and I think the baseball world might be a little bummed that the pitching matchups were switched, because originally it was Cease versus Jack Flaherty.
Yep, in game 2.
And then, no, that was game 1. And then yeah, and then game 2, they switched it. So then they put Yamamoto in game 1 instead of game 2. So it would have been Yu Darvish against Yoshinobu Yamamoto, which obviously two guys that know each other pretty well. And so it would have been a really fun pitching matchup there. But yeah, pitching matchup number 2, just as fun. Yu Darvish, the veteran. Jack Flaherty, big pickup at the trade deadline from the Detroit Tigers. The fact that the Tigers sold and are now going to the division series is just ridiculous. But yeah, so big pickup from them. Jack Flaherty, obviously a free agent at the end of the season here. How we feel about game 2? Because that pitching matchup, while not quite as fun, is still pretty exciting.
I don't think, like you said, there's not going to be a dull moment in this series, which I think lends to a lot of excitement. And it is just like the rivalry that's going to, I think, like continue to just breathe throughout this entire series of like these guys, sure, like they're competitors on a baseball field, and like sure, maybe like off the field they're like, hey friend, they hate each other when they actually play. Like there's a clip going semi-viral of Orlando Arcia hugging Manny Machado in the wildcard series, and Braves fans are mad because like you're losing in that game, you're walking up to Machado, like your enemy essentially, while you're playing the game, and giving him a hug after he scores 2 runs on you. No, like if someone tried to approach either Padres or Dodgers side here, they're going to get smacked in the face, with respect, of course, but they're going to get smacked in the face. Like this is going to be an intense series from start to finish. And I hope this goes the distance. I hope this goes all 5 games, because it will turn the division series into 7 games. I don't care. Like I need more of this like high caliber level of baseball throughout the entire time.
I would have to agree with that. Who you got in each series? Like let's start just rapid fire. Tigers, Guardians.
Give me the Guardians.
Okay. Mets, Phillies.
Give me the Phillies.
Kansas City and New York.
Give me New York.
And then Padres, Dodgers.
Padres.
So you've got you've got Cleveland versus New York. In the championship series, and then Phillies, Dodgers.
Yeah. No, Phillies, Padres.
Phillies, Padres. Okay. I mean those are some fun matchups in my opinion. You have, I think, the only team that's missing out of there is the Dodgers. Of course, but obviously one of them has to win. But in terms of like best ratings for baseball, they're in there for you. I go Detroit against Cleveland. I think
ride the wave.
Ride the wave, yeah. I'll go Detroit. I'll go Philadelphia, and I'll go Yankees. So Detroit versus Yankees in the championship series for me, and then I'll go Phillies and Dodgers because it'll be fun.
Yeah,
I think the Padres. Honestly, I do think the Padres have the deeper team. But Phillies Dodgers would be a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? Like if Shohei just goes nuclear, how are the Padres going to stop him? And I think that, I mean, he's the X factor for sure in that series. But there's plenty of things to watch around each individual one too. Like the best part is we're kind of removed from it as Mariners fans. We just get to sit back and enjoy baseball.
That's kind of what's been so nice for me over the past couple of days. I don't really care until. I cared when it was against the Astros.
Sure, but now that they're gone, like you're just rooting for fun, right?
I'm just rooting for exciting baseball. My dad and I were watching the game between the Brewers and the Mets, and it was like the 7th inning, and he goes, "This game's been boring." And I said, "Well, it won't be for long." And then, like literally the next inning, they hit the back-to-back home runs, did the Brewers, and I was like, "There it is, Dad. I don't know what to tell you." So
called it.
Just in terms of baseball, man, it's just been a fun postseason so far, and I'm really looking forward to the division series that we're going to have starting up on Saturday. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 2 of the MLB Mojo podcast, and we'll see you soon.